Okay, I'd like to call to order this regular council meeting of the Council of the Town of Saugeen Shores. Second item is disclosure of pecuniary interest. I'll ask any member if they have any pecuniary interest they'd like to declare. Seeing none, of course, you can do so anytime if you need to. We have no additions, deletions, or amendments. We have no public meetings. That moves us on to adoption of the minutes. And I have a motion moved by Councillor Carr, seconded by Councillor Schreider, that Council adopt the minutes of the regular Council meeting and special Council meeting of August 26, 2019 as presented. Questions or comments to either of those sets of minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? It's carried. That moves on to the Committee of the Whole minutes of August 26, 2019, and I have a motion moved by the Vice Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Smith, that Council note and file the minutes of the Committee of the Whole meeting of August 26, 2019 as presented. Questions or comments to those minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. That moves us on to reports of the Committee of the Whole. And the first one is an Infrastructure and Development Report of August 26, 2019, and I have a motion moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by the Vice Deputy Mayor, that Council of the Town of Saugeen Shores adopts the Infrastructure and Development Report dated August 26, 2019, recommending the following. 1. That the Water System Financial Plan for the period of 2019 to 2023 and authorizes staff, be approved, I assume, be approved and authorizes that Council approves the Water System Financial Plan for the period 2019 to 2023 and authorizes staff to proceed in 2019 with a water rate study review in conjunction with a wastewater rate study review to be completed in 2020. 2. The Council adopts the Wastewater System Financial Plan for the period 2019 to 2023 and authorizes staff to proceed in 2019 with the wastewater rate study review as recommended in the financial plan to be completed in 2020. 3. That Council authorize staff to single source purchase a single axle plow truck from Viking Civis as part of the 2020 capital budget funded out of the Development Charges Reserve. And 4, the Council authorizes staff to enter into an agreement with BM Ross through a single source quotation to provide engineering services in the amount of $20,000 plus allowances of $8,500 for the Railway Street Culvert Design approval and tender documents. Questions or comments to the resolution? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. That moves us then on to item 2, a report from Community Services, Parks and Recreation of August 26, 2019, and it has been moved by Councillor Schreider, seconded by the Deputy Mayor, that Council of the Town of Saugeen Shores adopts the Community Services, Parks and Recreation report dated August 26, 2019, recommending that Council approve the R-Zone Respect and Responsibility policy and procedure, and that it will be implemented in community services operated parks, facilities, and programs. Questions or comments to the resolution? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. That moves on past report of municipal officers and on to motions and notices of motion, and we have a motion this evening on an ad hoc advisory committee, and it has been moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Schreider. Be it resolved that Council direct the striking committee to create an ad hoc advisory committee to discuss possible alternative locations for the new aquatic and recreational facility in collaboration with town staff. The committee will be comprised of members of the public, council, and staff. The committee will report to council with their recommendations for the October 15th council meeting, and at this time, council will make their decision based on the recommendation presented. Okay, questions or comments to the resolution? The Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, first I'd like to thank the clerk and staff for tidying this up. It was a poorly designed and quickly put together motion, but they did a great job in putting forward what I was thinking. I would ask that at this point we change the 15th to the 28th. The striking committee has not met yet, and it'll be a couple weeks before that happens. So in order for it to come back to council, hopefully for our next meeting, we still have enough time to get the committee formed, get out there, look at the locations, and be able to still get a report back to council by the last meeting in October on the 28th, which still gives staff a couple weeks to fill in the blanks for our grant proposal.
Okay, further questions for members of the committee? Or pardon me, members of council? So that's an amendment made by the mover and seconder to amend that October 15th to October, it was the 28th? Yes. October 28th. Okay. Yeah, so just my comment would be that So the expectation of council for this committee will be to receive a list of alternative locations for a potential recreation facility. Is that correct? Okay. All right. Yeah, the Vice Deputy Mayor.
I just comment on Mr. Mayor, and I think I believe it's the right thing to do. I don't want to prolong this discussion from 2 weeks ago, but back in 2017, there really was no mention of a Y facility in that report. We talked about double pool and a walking track, and we haven't seen a site plan for the site. We haven't seen a business plan from the Y. We don't know what subsidy rates are. We don't know whether it's 20,000 square feet or 40,000 square feet. We don't know whether. I'm still not totally convinced it fits here. I think the ad hoc committee, I think it's a fair request in that I think that we just need to take a little bit of a step back one more time. I know there's probably some criticism in the community. Oh my gosh, another report, stall again. But we really need to take a look what's buried underneath the property here. There's miles and miles of pipes from the geothermal system, from our ice plant system, buried under here. There's lines running over to the police department's, lines running into the administration office here. There's lines to the west, lines to the east, lines to the south, 3 wells at the south. I just think it's a good thing to, while we have the 9 questions answered that our deputy mayor asked 2 weeks ago, I think simultaneously, once this ad hoc committee's formed, to give them 4 or 5 weeks to just take one more look to make sure this is absolutely the right site and other sites that may potentially work. Maybe talk to a private developer, look at Lamont Sports Park. This is a potentially $25 million decision plus. And, I just think it's important to get it right. And if this is the right site and the 9 questions are answered after we receive the Y business plan, are we going with the Y or are we not? If it's just a pool, walking track, maybe it fits. If it includes a fitness facility, gymnasium, another 100 cars needed, I don't know. Maybe it doesn't fit here. So I just think it's good to take a little step back. I've had a good number of people in the community talk to me about this, another delay. But I see it as a significant, and we all do around the table, I believe, a $25 to $30 million decision. I don't know what this dollar amount is yet. None of us do. It's $25 million plus for a Y facility. We really do need to get this right. And I had one person say to me today, it's like a phone booth, stuffing a facility, something real big into a phone booth. It's pretty. This site maybe isn't big enough. So I have some concerns about the site still, but I do want to get it right. And if after 2 weeks' time, or 4 weeks, 3 weeks' time, we get the answers back about those 9 questions, and we're satisfied, and this is the right spot, then let's go, let's do it. But I'm just not 100% convinced this is the right spot yet. So I think that ad hoc committee could do good things for this council.
Be clear, this resolution, if it passes, won't further delay the decision making on the Plex site. That report's coming on the 15th of October as directed by council. So there's this has no impact on that at this time. So there isn't any further delay suggested here. I just want to be very clear, though, based on the Vice Deputy Mayor's comments, the Striking Committee is going to have to draft terms of reference for this committee, and I just want to make sure that we're going to hit what Council expects here, because the Vice Deputy Mayor just talked about the Plex being part of the consideration, but the resolution is to discuss alternative locations, which I take to mean not the Plex, just alternative locations. So just so that's very clear, and that's what Council's expectation is here if it passes this resolution, that this committee will not consider the Plex as a possible location. That's how I read it and how I would want to implement it as a member of the Striking Committee if I read it. So just to be clear, Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I thought that the notice of motion included a number of questions. Some of the questions, or it was based on some questions not being answered. Certainly, I proposed some questions and still haven't heard the answers. So, what's the process going to be for us to learn the answers to those questions?
So just to be clear, that wasn't the notice. That motion passed at our last meeting. That directed staff to return on the 15th of October with answers to the questions posed by the Deputy Mayor I can't remember the seconder. I apologize for that, but there was maybe seconded by Councillor Schreider. So those questions were posed. The administration has them now and has been directed to return on the 15th of October with the answers to those questions. So the notice was to do with striking a committee, which is what is before us here at the moment. Does that clarify it? Councillor Smith.
Thank you. And Mr. Mayor, I understood that the previous motion with the additional questions, as you've mentioned, that is due back on October 15th, there was an expectation that we would be voting on that location upon receipt of those answers. So what I'm hearing, and I guess I'm asking for clarification, if we receive answers on the 15th to those 9 questions and are expected to vote yes or no to the proposal of this site location, is it a moot point then to resurrect a committee that would look at alternatives if we've already made a decision?
I mean, so it's council's decision whether it wants to vote on anything or not. On the 15th, council decides what it does with those resolutions. As you know, I certainly will be in support of voting on that day, but I think, council doesn't have to do anything it doesn't want to do. It can do with this information as it sees fit. But I think the deputy mayor is right in terms of having to push the date out for this. To strike a committee and have it report in a 3-week period is not fair to the committee or to this council, because we won't get the information. Even 4 weeks is going to be difficult, and I think we should have reasonable expectations about what a committee can even deliver in 4 weeks, considering, all the information we have on the Plex site, which was generated over a decade, right? So, there will be a limitation to how much information on any particular site we can get from a committee of volunteer folks without particular subject matter expertise, and council should be cognizant of that as it strikes this committee. But so I think you can't move faster than the 28th, and council on the 15th, I'm sure it will receive its report from the administration as it directed on, and then council will have to decide on the 15th what it wants to do with that information it's received and whether it's prepared to make a decision that evening or not, and that's entirely in our control. The Vice Deputy Mayor.
And I hear your comment that we worked on this site for 10 years, but the report 2 weeks ago, you mentioned, you commented on, so I'm going to comment what you commented on, and that is that we've been working on this Plex site for 10 years, been studying the site, and we still haven't seen a site plan. It's like the waterfront development, the Port Algon Beach, trying to come in without a site plan. They have a site plan. They know what they're thinking about doing. It's like the Holiday Inn Express purchasing a piece of land, Highway 21, without having a site plan. We don't have a site plan. So I think there's a whole lot of questions about this site still, and 9 questions are going to be answered. But I think there are far too many questions, and then when it comes back and those 9 questions get answered, I hope it's clear enough that this site, potentially can be put here. But if those 9 questions aren't clearly answered, as a backup plan, this ad hoc committee as a backup plan, we've got qualified staff. We've got 2 very qualified staff in the GIS department that can plot a 30,000 square foot building on a piece of land, whether it's Lamont Sports Park or whether it's a private piece of land close by, something a lot bigger than 4.5 acres of land. So why is on 6.4 acres for a building of a similar size? This is a small envelope here in my view. So you mentioned we worked on it for 10 years. Well, then I think the report 2 weeks ago should have had a whole lot more information in it. So I think the ad hoc committee is a good idea, and even based on what we decide, and when we have the 9 questions answered, we'll see. But I think it's still good to work side by side along the same path, with looking at a couple of other different sites for a project of this expense. So, anyways.
So Tracy just made a good point to me about the process, which should probably answer this issue. The resolution was introduced in Committee of the Whole, so the report will come back to Committee of the Whole. So you make the decision in Committee of the Whole. It will take 2 weeks to come back to Council before it's finalized. So that'll answer your question. The 2 things will arrive at the same time. The CAO.
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to comment that when the ICIP program, when we heard that it was coming, that was the push that started to drive the timeline. There's a window of opportunity. So that's lit the fire to a certain extent. Staff have had an opportunity now to meet with ministry reps to get a better understanding of the application process. We still are continuing that. It may, with a capital M, it may be critical to have a location. It may not be critical to have a location. So that drive, that push, a couple of weeks ago, we thought it would be critical. It may not. As we get more information, as we're having dialogue with the ministry, we'll update council, and that may give a little bit of leeway into the proposed timing schedule.
That's pretty clear, I think. If everybody is good, then we've heard the resolution, and I'll ask all in favor. Opposed? That is carried. And that then moves us on to bylaws, and we have one bylaw this evening, and has been moved by Councillor Mayette, seconded by Councillor Grace, that the following bylaws are hereby read a first, second, and third time and finally passed and sealed this 9th day of September 2019. 170-2019 being a bylaw to authorize an agreement with Her Majesty the Queen in Right of Ontario as represented by the Minister of Transportation for the Connecting Links program, and 271-2019 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council meetings of the Corporation of the Town of Saugeen Shores. Questions or comments to the bylaws? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. That moves us then on to adjournment. I have a motion moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Mayette, that this regular council meeting of September 9, 2019 hereby adjourns at 7:46 p.m. All in favor? We're adjourned. Thank you very much.